Welcome to today's devotional message with Trusting God Always. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still, silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's begin, and let His Word breathe new life into yours. You sit by the window, watching the dust motes dance in a shaft of golden afternoon light. The silence in the room isn't peaceful. It mirrors a deep, heavy quietness in your heart. You've been waiting for an answer that feels tangible, for a breakthrough that reshapes your circumstances, for a clear, undeniable sign that God sees you, that He truly hears the cries you've whispered in the dark. Maybe you've poured out your soul in raw, unfiltered prayer, laying bare your deepest longings, your most crippling fears, your vulnerabilities you thought only He knew. And yet, you feel met with what feels like empty space, a vast, echoing chasm where you expected a divine response. Doubt, that low, insidious whisper, finds its way into the corners of your mind. Does He even care? It hisses. Have you been forgotten in the grand story of billions? You remember the promises you once clung to, verses highlighted in your worn Bible that used to bring a surge of comfort and assurance. I will never leave you. My plans are for welfare, not for evil. He makes everything beautiful in its time. But in this prolonged moment of quiet, they feel distant, like faint echoes in an empty hall. Beautiful theory, but lacking present power. The desire for God's tangible presence is a physical ache, a longing for Him to break through this silence and show you He is near, intimately involved. This feeling of being stuck in the waiting room of life, perhaps with no magazine to read, no one calling your name, just the sterile silence and the weight of anticipation, is a universal human experience. It's intensified profoundly when you have placed your ultimate hope, your very faith, in a God who feels absent, distant, or simply silent. It's in this vulnerable space, stripped bare of easy answers and quick fixes, that the deepest, most challenging questions about faith, trust, God's character, and His timing emerge. Is He delaying, or is He refining? Is the silence rejection, or is it simply the quiet necessary for a seed to sprout unseen beneath the soil? This script, this message, is for you, specifically in this moment of waiting. It's not meant to be a quick fix, a magical incantation to end your silence tomorrow. Instead, it's an invitation to journey into the heart of God's timing, to walk with you through the quiet, dusty room of waiting. It is a whisper of truth against the loud lies of doubt. That waiting isn't a sign of God's absence, but so often a canvas for His most profound, unseen work. Sometimes the greatest movements of God are hidden in the stillness. You are not forgotten. God is not late. His timing isn't a clock ticking on a wall. It is the rhythmic heartbeat of perfect love and purpose. This message is poured into the quiet, hoping to stir something deep within your spirit. A flicker of hope in the darkness. A renewed sense of His unwavering, unshakable presence, even when the path ahead is completely unseen and the waiting feels endless, stretching beyond the horizon. Let this be a moment to breathe deeply into the silence, to lean into the stillness, and to listen not just with your ears, but with your spirit, for the quiet assurance that God is intricately involved in every single chapter of your story, perhaps most intimately in the ones marked by waiting. Sometimes, His most powerful answers come not as thunder, but as a gentle whisper that requires a quiet heart to hear. This quiet is not emptiness, it is potential. This waiting is not abandonment, it is cultivation. This moment is not wasted, it is sacred. Let His truth begin to break through the heavy silence like the first rays of dawn. You stand before a door that won't open. You've knocked, the sound echoing in the hollow silence of your hope. You've prayed, words whispered into the wind, seemingly carried away before they reached the heavens. You've pounded, the desperation in your soul, a tangible weight against the unyielding wood or cold metal. It's a door to something you longed for, a new opportunity that slipped away, a relationship that remains just out of reach, healing that seems perpetually delayed, or simply relief from a relentless struggle that has worn you thin. You watch others walk through their doors, effortlessly, it seems, while yours remains stubbornly shut, a monument to your unanswered prayers or blocked path. The handle is cold, a mirror to the chill settling in your heart. Doubt begins to whisper, a serpent in the garden of your faith, asking if you were heard at all, if you were forgotten. But pause here, breathe in the quiet air at this threshold. What if this is not a closed door, but a delayed door? What if the silence is not an absence of God's voice, but the hush before He speaks in a way you hadn't anticipated? Not every no or not yet from the divine is a rejection of you. Sometimes it is divine redirection, a loving Father steering you onto a different path because He sees what lies ahead, dangers you are unaware of, blessings waiting further down the road you cannot yet perceive. Sometimes it is protection, a gentle hand holding you back from a situation that looks good now, but would ultimately bring harm. The waiting isn't a wall designed to stop you dead in your tracks. It might just be a purposeful pause, orchestrated by a God who sees the whole picture you cannot, who knows the end from the beginning. It's a moment designed to gently challenge you. Are you trusting the door, the outcome you desire? Or are you trusting the doorkeeper, the one who holds the keys to every gate and knows when and where each one should open? Consider the Israelites at the edge of the Red Sea. Before them, an impassable, massive body of water. Their door was shut tighter than any lock could make it. Behind them, the thunderous pursuit of Pharaoh's army, closing in with deadly intent. No obvious way forward, nowhere to retreat. They were utterly trapped, facing a closed door with an impossible situation pressing in. Yet God wasn't absent. He was present, poised to do the miraculous. He wasn't just watching the Red Sea. He was preparing a path through the impossible, a dry road where waves once crashed. Exodus 14. Your reflection today, standing at this threshold, is God asking you to trust His timing and His method, even when the way seems utterly blocked, devoid of logical entry? He isn't distant, watching from afar as you struggle with the handle. He is with you, right at the threshold, in the stillness, in the uncertainty. He is asking you to trust His presence, His wisdom, His power, more than you trust the appearance of the closed door, more than the evidence of your senses. The door may seem shut, but the doorkeeper is right beside you. Trust Him to lead, even if it's into a wilderness before a promised land, or through a sea before salvation. You kneel again, the worn rug familiar beneath your knees. It's the same prayer you've whispered, sometimes shouted, maybe for months, perhaps even years. You've carefully cataloged the need, laid bare the deepest hurt, articulated the fervent desire with painstaking detail. Each time, you lift this fragile hope, placing it gently, tentatively, at the foot of the cross, daring to believe this will be the time the answer takes visible form. You watch the horizon, waiting for the dawn of change, for the storm to lift, for the river of provision to finally reach your dry land. But the sun rises and sets. Days bleed into weeks, weeks melt into months, and the silence remains unbroken. It's not just an absence of sound, it's an absence of answer. This accumulation of unheard pleas, of seemingly ignored requests, can feel like a heavy cloak woven from disappointment and confusion, settling upon your shoulders, pressing down, dimming the inner light of hope that flickers precariously. You feel its weight in the stillness of your home, in the hurried pace of your day, in the quiet hours of the night. It's a pressure that breeds insidious questions. Did I pray wrong? Was my faith not strong enough? Does God not care about this burden that feels so monumental to me? The path through this wilderness of waiting reveals a profound spiritual truth. Unanswered prayers, in our timing, are not God's oversight, but often a divine invitation to deepen our understanding of His absolute sovereignty and His perfect, unsearchable will. His no, or more often, His not yet, is never a measure of your faith's depth or a reflection of the limits of God's boundless love. It is, instead, a testament to His infinite wisdom, a wisdom that sees the end from the beginning, a plan unfolding in ways we cannot possibly grasp from our limited, time-bound vantage point. Remember Jesus in the garden, facing a cup of suffering too great for human comprehension? He prayed, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me." A fervent human plea. Yet He immediately followed it with the divine surrender. "Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. The answer wasn't the removal of the cup, but the strength to drink it, fulfilling a larger, more glorious purpose. The answer was found in yieldedness. What if the unanswered prayer is actually being answered in a way your current vision hasn't recognized yet? What if the divine work is happening in the invisible places, in the soil of your soul, cultivating patience, strengthening roots, preparing you for a harvest you can't yet see? God is working, even when the visible manifestation of your specific request seems absent. He is present in the asking, leaning in to hear your heart. He is present in the silence, crafting something deeper within you. And He will be present in the eventual answer, revealed in His perfect timing and His perfect way. Keep praying, yes, pour out your heart, but also keep watching. Watch with eyes open to His subtle movements in your life, His quiet work within you during the wait. Sometimes, the greatest answers arrive not with a shout, but with a whisper in the quiet spaces He creates. Sometimes, the lifting of the weight comes not from the removal of the burden, but from His strength beneath it. He is there. He is working. You look around, and it feels like a spiritual wilderness. Dry, barren, isolated. The dust settles on everything, a constant reminder of what isn't here. You remember seasons of abundance, moments when God's presence felt like a rushing river, when faith was easy and answers seemed clear. You saw His hand move clearly then, painting miracles across the canvas of your life. Now, It's just you and the endless sand. The promised land, that place of rest and fulfillment you long for, feels impossibly far away, a mirage shimmering on the horizon of hope. This feeling of being forgotten in a desolate season is deeply disorienting. It wraps around you like the dry wind, whispering questions of worthiness. Have you somehow drifted too far from God's reach? Did you make a wrong turn somewhere back down the path? Does He even see you out here, lost in this vast, empty space? The profound loneliness can be crushing, making the silence scream louder than any doubt. You might search frantically for an oasis, a sign, anything to break the monotony of sameness, only to find more sand, more quiet. But the spiritual insight carved into the bedrock of this wilderness is that these seasons, however painful, are often crucible moments. They are not periods of divine abandonment, but rather intense processes of purification, testing, and drawing you into a deeper, more radical dependence on God alone. It is in the stripping away of everything else that you discover He is enough. Remember the Israelites. They wandered for 40 long years in their own wilderness, feeling profoundly forgotten. Yet God's presence was a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night, a constant, visible proof He was with them, even in their lack, guiding their steps, keeping them from scorching sun and chilling night. Exodus 13:21-22. He didn't give them reservoirs. He provided manna daily, teaching them to trust Him for each day's bread, not stockpile for tomorrow's fear. Allow yourself to feel the rawness of this wilderness. Acknowledge the ache of the dryness. But then, gently, intentionally, lift your eyes to seek the signs of His presence that are there, however subtle. Perhaps it's the unexpected strength to take another step, a single flower pushing through the sand, or a forgotten verse that floats into your mind like cool water. He promises never to leave or forsake you. Hebrews 13:5. His faithfulness isn't contingent on your season of abundance. It is the foundation beneath your feet, even when the ground feels cracked and unstable. Where are you looking for comfort and provision in this dry season? Is it solely in the water you long for, the answer, the breakthrough, the change in circumstances? Or can you find nourishment in His Word and His presence, which are available even in the desert? He is walking with you, step for difficult step, even when the landscape seems empty of His footprints, leaving His mark instead on your spirit, shaping you in the heat. Sometimes, God is most present when He feels most absent. The clock on the wall feels like an accusation. Each tick is a reminder of the time passing, the prayer unanswered, the door still closed. You sit in the silence, wondering if your prayer was even heard, if the fervent whispers left your lips or simply dissolved into the air around you. The wind taps the window, like God's whisper waiting for your stillness, a stillness you struggle to find in the anxious energy that pulses beneath your skin. This waiting feels less like a pause and more like punishment, a test you weren't prepared for, a holding pattern while the rest of the world seems to soar past. Patience isn't a natural virtue for most of us, especially in a world built on instant gratification. We live in a culture of now, instant downloads, fast food, overnight delivery. Our muscles for waiting have atrophied. Waiting on God's timing doesn't just inconvenience us. It forces us into a classroom where patience is the core subject, and the curriculum is often excruciatingly slow. You might feel like you're failing the class, frustrated by the apparent slowness of divine movement. The silence stretches. The vision seems distant. The longed-for answer remains elusive. It feels like you're walking through a wilderness, the promised land just over the horizon, but the path is winding and the journey is long. The desert heat bakes the ground, and you thirst not just for water, but for movement, for progress, for relief. This intense struggle with impatience isn't merely an inconvenience, it's a mirror reflecting our deepest desires and fears. It reveals our inherent desire for control, our desperate need to manage outcomes and dictate timelines. We want things now according to our timeline because we believe we know what's best or what's needed. We see the immediate need, the pressing problem, the empty space in our lives, and our logical minds calculate the fastest route to resolution. God's way often seems illogical, circuitous, and frustratingly slow. This impatience also lays bare our limited perspective. We see only the present moment, the immediate obstacle, the tangible lack. God sees the end from the beginning, the intricate tapestry being woven, the unseen work happening beneath the surface. We focus on the destination. He is focused on the journey, and more importantly, on who we become on the journey. The spiritual insight woven into the very fabric of the waiting is profound. God's timing is not designed to frustrate you, but to form you. The waiting is not empty time. It is sacred space for cultivation. He is cultivating a harvest of patience, perseverance, and deep, unwavering trust within your soul. Like a seed buried in the earth, hidden and unseen, immense growth is happening in the dark, silent places of your heart. The seed isn't dormant. It's drawing nutrients, establishing roots, gathering strength for the eventual push toward the light. Your waiting is this underground season, essential, vital, transformative. The Apostle James speaks directly into this struggle, knowing that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. James 1:3-4 ESV. The waiting is the testing ground of your faith. It tests if you believe God is good even when He isn't fast. It tests if you trust His wisdom even when you don't understand His methods. It tests if your hope is anchored in His character or in the immediate fulfillment of your desires. Steadfastness, endurance, resilience, the ability to stand firm under pressure, is the glorious fruit produced in the crucible of waiting. It's learning to walk forward in faith, even when the path is shrouded in mist. Knowing the one leading you sees clearly. Think of a farmer waiting for the harvest. He plants the seed, tends the soil, waters and fertilizes, but he cannot force the sun to shine or the rain to fall. He cannot command the seed to sprout or the fruit to ripen. He is utterly dependent on forces beyond his control, the seasons, the weather, the mysterious life force within the seed itself. But his dependence does not make him passive. He tends the soil, trusts the seasons, and knows the waiting is essential for the fruit to develop fully, to be rich and ripe and abundant. The farmer understands that rushing the harvest yields bitter, underdeveloped fruit. God, the ultimate farmer of your soul, knows that rushing your spiritual harvest would leave you incomplete, lacking the very qualities He intends to grow in you during this season. This divine patience with you and the patient work He is doing in you is a profound example. He is patient with your doubts, your fears, your stumbles, your impatience. He doesn't abandon the field when the crops are slow to mature. He continues to nurture, to prune, to provide exactly what is needed in His perfect timing. Your reflection in this classroom of waiting. What seeds of patience, trust, and perseverance is God hoping to grow in your life during this specific season of waiting? How can you consciously choose to lean into the process of growth like the farmer tending the soil, trusting that His timing, though slow by your clock, is absolutely perfect for the eventual harvest of character and blessing He intends to bring forth? He is patiently working all things for your good. Learn patience from Him as you rest in that truth. You sit with the weight of a promise that seems to mock your reality. It feels like God spoke, the heavens moved, hope soared, and then years passed. The vibrant vision you held now feels dusty, faded by the relentless march of impossible time. This echo of doubt finds its ancient mirror in the story of Abraham. Imagine him, an old man, his body well past its prime, his beloved Sarah, barren, the very picture of biological impossibility. And yet, God's voice, clear and unwavering, "You will be the father of nations." He wasn't just promised one child. He was promised a lineage that would bless the entire earth. The physical world screamed absurd with every passing year. He saw younger men raising families, their homes filled with the laughter of children, while his own tents remained quiet, save for the shuffling of servants and the bleating of flocks. The promise was a mountain range on the horizon, stunning in its scale, but the path to reach it stretched into an endless, barren wilderness of waiting. This gap between the divine declaration and the earthly delay is where faith is truly tested, stretched thin across the rack of time. In his very human impatience, faced with the seeming impossibility, Abraham took a detour. He tried to help God out through Hagar, a path that brought only pain and discord. A vivid illustration that our efforts to engineer God's promises often lead us further from His perfect plan. It's a mirror for us, isn't it? When the wait feels too long, when the circumstances defy logic, we clutch the steering wheel, convinced our clever maneuvering will bridge the gap. We forget that the promise is guaranteed not by our strained striving or our desperate detours, but solely by the unwavering faithfulness of the one who made it. Abraham's faith wasn't credited to him because he made it happen. It was credited because he believed it would happen. Against all hope, Romans 4:18-22. The waiting didn't diminish the promise. It refined Abraham, stripping away self-reliance, forging a legacy of absolute trust in God's sovereignty. A sovereignty that laughs at biology, bends time, and orchestrates circumstances beyond our wildest imagination. Consider the promises God has whispered to your own heart. Are you growing weary under the weight of the wait? Do the years feel like silent witnesses to an unfulfilled word? Perhaps God is gently asking you to release your white-knuckled grip on controlling the outcome, to stop trying to engineer the miracle. He who promised is faithful to perform it, not necessarily in your timing, but in His way, in His season. Like Abraham, your faith isn't failing in the waiting. It is being accounted to you, accredited in the quiet spaces between He said and it happened. He remembers His promise. He is not bound by your clock or your calendar. Picture the millions of Israelites, a vast ocean of people, recently freed from generations of brutal bondage in Egypt. They followed a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Undeniable, breathtaking signs of God's literal presence guiding their every step. They had witnessed the impossible. 10 devastating plagues that broke the will of the world's superpower. The miraculous parting of the Red Sea, walking on dry ground as mountains of water stood guard on either side. They saw their pursuers swallowed by the waves. Incredible miracles etched into their collective memory. Yet, soon, the wilderness tested them. The vast, desolate expanse stretched before them. Hot sun beating down, the sand relentless. Water was scarce. Food was not the familiar fare of Egypt. And despite the visible cloud and fire, despite the fresh memory of deliverance, they complained. They doubted. They longed for the comforts of slavery, the leeks, the onions, the fish, forgetting the whip, the chains, the cries of their children. Their 40 years of wandering wasn't a direct march. It was a season of prolonged, often difficult, waiting for the promised land. It was fraught with hardship, with lessons learned and forgotten, with repeated rebellion. This journey illustrates that waiting isn't always static silence. It can be a dynamic, challenging pilgrimage through unfamiliar, uncomfortable terrain. And the profound spiritual insight: God's presence doesn't disappear in the wilderness. He didn't abandon them to the sand and sun. He provided daily manna from the sky, a bread they hadn't sown or harvested, teaching them day by day dependence. He brought water from a solid rock. His guidance remained constant through the cloud and the fire. Their waiting was filled with incredible hardship. Yes, the journey was long and hard, but it was also saturated with undeniable, moment-by-moment evidence of God's provision and protection. This wilderness wasn't just a punishment for doubt. It was a classroom designed to teach them dependence on Him, not just for the ultimate destination, but for the daily journey, the next step, the next meal. In your current wilderness, whatever form it takes, a prolonged season of singleness, a difficult job search, a chronic health struggle, a dream deferred, what are the daily signs of God's provision and presence that you might be overlooking? Perhaps you are so focused on the distant promised land, the answered prayer, the breakthrough, the arrival, that you miss the daily manna God is providing for you today, in this very moment of waiting. He wants to meet you here, in the wilderness, and teach you to rely on Him for each necessary step, not just the final triumphant arrival. His presence is the true promised land, available right now. He is anointed. Oil drips from His hair onto His shoulders, a sacred, sticky promise settling upon a young shepherd boy. Samuel, the prophet, has spoken God's truth over David. You will be king. The vision is clear, the calling undeniable, a future painted in gold. Yet, moments later, months pass, then years. He isn't on a throne in a palace. He is in a cave. He is not leading an army. He is leading a small band of outcasts. He is not celebrated. He is hunted. King Saul, driven by jealousy, pursues him relentlessly through the wilderness, a constant shadow of death. David hides in the darkness, the cold earth his bed, the silence broken only by dripping water and the anxious beat of his own heart. This is the raw, paradoxical reality of God's timing. The promise is given, the anointing poured out, but the path to fulfillment leads not through open gates and cheering crowds, but through hidden places and refining fire. You sit in your own cave, perhaps not made of rock, but of waiting, of uncertainty, of circumstances that feel fundamentally counterintuitive to the beautiful promises God has whispered over your life. You received a word, felt a stirring, saw a vision of what could be, a ministry, a restoration, a breakthrough. But instead of ascent, you experienced descent. Instead of expansion, limitation. Instead of rain, retreat. Betrayal may have struck, hardship became your daily bread, and the constant pressure feels insurmountable. This waiting season, this period of hiding while anointed, is not a delay. It is a crucial part of the divine process. God isn't primarily concerned with getting you to the throne quickly. He is profoundly invested in who you become in the cave. He is shaping your character, teaching you absolute dependence on Him, forging a faith that can withstand the weight of a crown. David wrote many psalms from these dark places, raw cries of lament, woven with threads of defiant trust. Psalm 57, penned when hiding in a cave from Saul, begins, "Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me, for in you my soul takes refuge. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge, until the destroying storms pass by." His faith wasn't abstract. It was forged in the immediate threat, grounded in the paradox that safety was found within the terrifying confine. Maybe your season of waiting feels like a cave. Reflect on it. How is God using this pressure cooker to refine you? What lessons of trust, dependence, and humility is He etching onto your soul that you couldn't learn on the mountaintop? The cave is not the end of your story. It is part of the preparation for the throne. Trust that God is sovereign over your circumstances, even the painful ones, and He is using them to shape you into the person He intends you to be. He is present in your hiding place, forging strength and faith in secret places you didn't know you needed strengthened. He is closer in the darkness than you can imagine, refining you not despite the weight, but through it. The days bleed into weeks, then months. You check the horizon, scan the skies, search for any sign, any crack in the silence that whispers of progress. But there is nothing, just the same four walls of your waiting season, the same unanswered prayer echoing in the quiet room. Doubt, a cold visitor, taps lightly at the edges of your heart, whispering, "Has God forgotten? Is anything really happening?" You feel stagnant, stuck, maybe even unseen. The world outside seems to spin on, visible results blooming everywhere else, while you remain in this internal, hidden space. It feels unproductive, maybe even like a waste of time, a season swallowed by inertia. But step closer, lean in, beyond the surface frustration, and see the sacred truth hidden within this stillness. Imagine a tiny seed buried deep beneath the cold earth. To anyone looking down, there is nothing, just dark soil, undisturbed. But down there, in that hidden place, a miracle is unfolding. Life is stirring. Roots, the very anchors of future strength, are reaching, feeling their way through the darkness, establishing the foundation that will one day support a vibrant plant reaching for the sun. Or think of a baby growing within the mother's womb. No one outside sees the intricate dance of cells, the formation of bones, the weaving of systems, the beating of a new heart. It is a season of profound hiddenness, yes, but also a season of unparalleled, meticulous, divine construction. Your season of waiting, This period where visible progress seems non-existent often feels exactly like this hidden work. It is the womb of waiting. To the outside world, and perhaps even to your own frustrated eyes, nothing tangible appears to be happening. You are not seeing the fruit, the breakthrough, the answer you are praying for. But beneath the surface, in the soil of your soul, God is doing profound, foundational things within you. This is not a time of delay. It is a time of divine development. It is not a pause. It is preparation in the secret place. The spiritual insight here is radical and often counterintuitive to our fast-paced, results-driven culture. God often uses seasons of quiet hiddenness and waiting to build the essential internal foundations that will sustain you when the visible breakthrough finally comes. The strength you will need to carry the weight of the blessing, the resilience to weather the storms that will follow the arrival, the humility to steward what is given, and most critically, a deeper, more dependent connection to the one who is doing the building. These are forged in the hidden place. The waiting is not empty. It is fertile ground for spiritual growth that the arrival simply cannot provide. It's where your roots grow deep, where your character is refined, where your faith learns to breathe without the constant oxygen of visible evidence. This is the time you learn to trust the builder, not just the blueprint or the finished structure. Consider Jesus himself. 30 years, 3 decades spent in relative obscurity in Nazareth before his public ministry began. A long, silent season of hidden preparation. What was God doing in those years? Building character, deepening connection, preparing the foundation for a ministry that would literally change the world. He wasn't idling. He was being meticulously shaped for the monumental task ahead. If the Son of God needed a season of hidden preparation, how much more do we? The wilderness isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it is a training ground disguised as emptiness. The valley isn't always a place of despair. Sometimes it is a necessary descent for roots to find deeper water. This womb season, this time of hiddenness, feels slow, maybe even stagnant. It challenges your patience, tests your hope, and forces you to confront your deepest fears about being forgotten or unseen. But what if this quiet struggle is the very process God is using to strengthen your spiritual core? What hidden work might He be doing in your heart, transforming fear into faith? In your mind, reshaping doubt into quiet confidence in His timing? In your spirit, deepening your dependence on Him alone? Can you dare to trust that even when you see nothing happening on the surface, His creative power is powerfully at work, meticulously preparing you for the future He has planned, for the breakthrough He will surely bring in its season? Embrace this womb season, not as a punishment or a pause, but as a time of crucial, foundational development. He is building you profoundly, purposefully, in the secret place. The days stretch out like an endless desert horizon. You ache for movement, for a sign that the journey is nearing its end. But all you see is the same sand, the same sky. This waiting feels less like a pause and more like a furnace. The heat isn't just external circumstances, it's the internal pressure, the gnawing doubt whispering, "Has God forgotten?" The frustration bubbling up when your meticulously planned steps lead nowhere. This is the heat of delayed hope, the uncomfortable intensity that strips away your illusions of control. Imagine gold in the crucible. It doesn't look beautiful there. It's subjected to immense fire, a heat so fierce it seems destructive. But that fire isn't meant to ruin the gold. It's designed to refine it. It burns away the dross, the impurities that lessen its value and strength. Waiting is often God's refiner's fire in your life. The pressure you feel, the discomfort you experience, is actively working to separate the precious from the impure within you. What is this heat revealing? Perhaps it's the dross of self-reliance, the belief that if you just push hard enough, strategize smart enough, you can force God's hand or bypass His timing. Maybe it's the idols of control you didn't realize you were clinging to, unraveling now under the weight of uncertainty. It could be a superficial faith, one that thrives in sunshine but buckles under the storm's relentless wind. The fire exposes what isn't meant to last, what doesn't belong in the pure, resilient faith God desires for you. This process feels painful, yes, because shedding old skin always does. The prophet Malachi speaks of God as a refiner's fire and a fuller's soap. Malachi 3:2-3. He doesn't stand far off, indifferent to the heat you're feeling. He sits by the fire. He watches intently. He knows the exact temperature needed, the precise moment to bring you out. He is in the fire with you, overseeing the purification, ensuring the process serves His holy purpose. He is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is making you more precious, more valuable, capable of carrying the weight of the promises He is bringing forth. Reflect, quietly now, on the areas where the heat of waiting is most intense. What impurities are surfacing? What self-protective layers are beginning to peel away? What control are you still trying to grasp that God is gently asking you to release? Trust that this discomfort is not random suffering. It is purposeful purification. He is shaping you, strengthening you, readying you for the beauty and blessing that emerges only after the refining is complete. Surrender the struggle to understand the timing and trust the hand that holds the temperature. He is turning the pressure into polish, the waiting into worth. The calendar pages turn. Your deadline looms. You prayed, you planned, you set the date. This is when it needs to happen. But God's clock seems silent, or worse, it ticks to a rhythm you cannot comprehend. You feel the tension knotting in your gut. This is the hardest part of waiting, isn't it? It's surrendering our desired timeline to His. We grip our plans tightly. The career promotion by this age, the relationship by this year, the healing by this season. We have our expectations, our deadlines, our deeply held beliefs about how and when things should unfold. When God doesn't adhere to our schedule, it feels like a direct challenge. It confronts the illusion of control we didn't even realize we were clinging to so fiercely. It tests our willingness to trust His wisdom over the loud, insistent demands of our own desires and the world's expectations. The air grows thin with doubt. The path ahead seems unclear because the map you drew isn't working. Your fear of missing out, of being left behind, screams louder than the quiet assurance of His presence. But the profound spiritual insight here, whispering beneath the frustration, is the absolute necessity of surrendering our timeline to God's perfect, sovereign timing. This isn't about passive resignation, as if giving up is the only option. No, this is an active choice. It is a powerful, defiant act of faith in the face of human impatience. It is choosing to believe, against all present evidence perhaps, that God's later is not a denial, but is ultimately better, more perfectly aligned, more deeply transformative than our now. Remember when Jesus spoke to his disciples just before his ascension? They were eager, expectant, full of their own timelines for the restoration of the kingdom. He told them plainly, gently, "It is not for you to know times or seasons that the Father has fixed by his own authority." Acts 1:7. What a powerful, humbling truth. Timing is his divine prerogative. It is fixed by his authority, not ours. Our grip on the calendar is fragile. His hold on history is absolute. Surrendering your timing isn't losing time. It's stepping into his eternal, perfect timing. It's like clenching your fist tightly around grains of sand. The harder you squeeze your desired schedule, the more control feels like it's slipping through your fingers. But surrendering your timeline isn't defeat. It's unclenching that fist. It's placing those precious, granular moments, those hopes and deadlines, gently into the vast, open palm of God. It's aligning your finite will, your limited perspective, with the one who isn't bound by minutes or months, the one who truly knows the end from the beginning. What specific timelines or deadlines are you holding on to tightly today? Look at them honestly. Feel the tension they create in your shoulders, your jaw, your heart. Your reflection is this: can you unclench your fist around your desired schedule, your planned date, your expected outcome by when, and place it gently, trustingly into God's hands? Trusting his authority over time itself is freeing. He is not constrained by your calendar. He sees the full picture, the hidden connections, the perfect moment for unfolding. He holds your timeline, not loosely, not carelessly, but securely within his perfect hand. Rest there. His timing is not a lack of care. It is the fullness of his wisdom at work. The clock on the wall of your waiting room feels stuck. Dust motes dance in the single shaft of light, highlighting the stillness, the stagnation you feel deep within. You sit there, restless or numb, convinced that life itself is on pause. "I can't really begin," the whisper goes, "until this happens, until that door swings open, until the answer arrives." This conviction, though born of genuine hope for change, becomes a cage. It breeds discouragement like weeds in an untended garden, choking out the vibrant life God intends for you now. You've begged for the mountain to move, but maybe God is asking you to tend the garden on the mountain instead. But the sacred truth, whispered through ancient winds, is that waiting on God is not passive paralysis. It is active, present obedience. Think of Noah. God gave him a promise, a massive future event, a flood to cleanse the earth. But Noah didn't just sit on a hill, scanning the horizon for storm clouds. For decades, he was busy. He was gathering gopher wood. He was measuring lengths. He was cutting timbers according to divine blueprint, hammering nails according to divine instruction. Genesis 6. His waiting wasn't empty. It was filled with the rhythmic sound of faith in action. He was faithful in the now of building, and that obedience prepared him for the then of the floodwaters. He didn't see the end, but he trusted the author enough to follow the instructions for the middle. This is where divine wisdom meets your very human fear of the unknown. God often doesn't reveal step C until you faithfully take step B. The clarity you crave for tomorrow is frequently granted through the simple, humble obedience required today. Faithfulness in what seems small in the present moment is not a delay. It is the very path forward, the training ground for the bigger things God has for you. It keeps you tethered to His will, alive to His presence, even when the future feels shrouded in mist. It is a gentle paradox. You find momentum in the quiet consistency of doing what you know God has asked you to do right now. So lean in close. Ask yourself gently, honestly, what are the practical, immediate steps God has shown you to take, regardless of the outcome you're waiting for? What is the quiet, everyday obedience required of you today? Perhaps it's tending to your health, honoring a commitment, speaking a word of kindness, practicing discipline in a small area, reading His Word for comfort and guidance, or simply being present with those He has placed in your life. Your reflection today is simply this: focus on faithfulness in this present moment. There is a profound, unshakable peace to be found not in controlling the future, but in consecrating the now through simple obedience. He honors that obedience. He meets you in that faithful action. It is a pathway to His presence, a quiet unfolding of His plan, even in the heart of the longest wait. The silence stretches out like a vast, empty plain. You've walked through this wilderness of waiting longer than you ever thought possible. The horizon looks the same today as it did yesterday, and the quiet whispers begin. What if He never shows up? The question pricks at your soul, sharp and unwelcome. It's a seed of doubt planted in the fertile ground of unmet expectations. You replay promises heard, prayers offered, hopes held dear, and the question returns. Louder this time. What if this promise wasn't for me? What if I misunderstood? The weight of it presses down, making you feel foolish for clinging to hope when all evidence points to lack. Perhaps you look around and see others walking in abundance, reaching their promised lands, while you still feel stuck, adrift. This feeling of being left behind, of being unrealistic in your stubborn faith, is a common shadow that falls across the path of every believer in a season of delay. The battle isn't fought with visible armies, but within the quiet chambers of your heart, between the tenacious grip of faith and the insidious crawl of doubt. It is an honest, raw wrestling with unseen realities. The profound truth is that doubt isn't always a sign of no faith, but often the strenuous exertion of faith in the face of prolonged darkness. It is a natural reaction when the lamp of hope seems to flicker and the path ahead is shrouded in fog. Remember the father pleading for his child, crying out with a desperate honesty that resonates across centuries. I believe, help my unbelief. Mark 9:24. There is profound spiritual insight in this plea. It is possible to hold belief and grapple with doubt simultaneously. Bringing your doubts honestly to God is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of bringing your whole, struggling self into His presence. He does not recoil from your questions. He invites them, knowing that sometimes the wrestling is the very thing that leads to a deeper, more rooted trust. So perhaps the call here is not to suppress the doubt, but to speak it. Acknowledge the specific fears that assail you in this waiting period. The fear of being forgotten, of having been wrong, of wasting time, of disappointment. Speak them honestly to the one who already knows every corner of your heart. Then, deliberately, determinedly, cling to what you do know about His character. His faithfulness isn't dependent on your circumstance. It's who He is. His love isn't earned by your performance. It is freely given. His power isn't limited by your vision. It is boundless. Recall His track record in your life, the small mercies, the unexpected joys, the times He carried you when you couldn't stand. Reflect on his track record in Scripture. Seas parted, mountains moved, the dead raised. How can you choose, today, to anchor your hope not in the shifting sands of your circumstances, which fluctuate like the tide, but in the unchanging, immovable bedrock of God's nature? He is patient with your doubt. His arms are strong enough to hold you even while you wrestle with the hardest questions. This season of doubt, faced honestly and brought before Him, can become the unexpected forge where a resilient, unbreakable faith is shaped. You sit in the silence, the air thick with unspoken hopes and unmet expectations. The job interview didn't call back. The doctor's report is delayed. Again, the house feels too quiet, too empty, a stark reminder of the spouse you long for. That dream, the one you've nurtured in secret, seems no closer to materializing than it did years ago. And in this space, in this prolonged season of waiting, a subtle erosion begins. It's not just the circumstance that feels uncertain. It's you. Slowly, quietly, your identity starts to tie itself to the outcome. You feel like a failure because the door hasn't opened. You feel incomplete because the longed-for relationship hasn't arrived. You feel defined, not by your spirit or your strengths, but by the label of illness, the weight of debt, the state of being not yet. The waiting room of life becomes a mirror reflecting not who you are, but what you lack. You start believing the lie that your worth is contingent on the result, that you become whole or successful if and when the desired outcome finally materializes. This season isn't just challenging your patience, it's challenging your very sense of self. It's whispering insidious doubts. Are you not enough? Is something fundamentally wrong with you? But listen closely, over the anxious thrumming in your chest, over the world's relentless tying of worth to achievement. There is a truth, ancient and unshakable, that exists entirely outside the confines of your current circumstance. Your identity is not rooted in the shifting sands of outcomes or the unpredictable currents of life seasons. It is anchored, immovably, in Christ alone. Imagine this. You are loved, not because you landed the job, but because He first loved you. You are chosen, not because someone finally saw your worth, but because He elected you before time began. You are worthy, not because your body is whole, but because His sacrifice made you holy. You are complete, not because every piece of your life puzzle is in place, but because you are complete in Him. Your waiting season does not define you. Your desires, fulfilled or deferred, do not define you. The Apostle Paul reminds us of this profound reality. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. 2 Corinthians 5:17. A new creation. This isn't a status you earn after the wait is over. It's who you are the moment you are united with Christ. You are redefined, not by your external markers of success or the lack thereof, but by His grace and your unbreakable relationship with Him. The old ways of measuring yourself, by job titles, relationship statuses, health reports, or fulfilled dreams, these have passed away. The new reality is that your value is settled at the cross. It was paid for, fully and irrevocably, not by whether the door opens on your schedule, but by the King who surrendered everything for you. Ask yourself in the quiet of your soul, what lies about your worth or identity have taken root during this wait? Has the lack of a ring made you feel less than? Has the absence of a promotion made you question your capabilities? Has the delay of healing convinced you that you are broken beyond repair? These are not God's truths about you. Now, gently, intentionally, choose to see yourself through His eyes. Look past the current scene. Remember that your value is inherent, woven into the very fabric of your being, because you are His child. It is not a prize you strive for. It is a birthright you reclaim. Reclaiming your identity in Christ is the most stable, unshakable ground you can possibly stand on. While waiting, it means recognizing that even in the wilderness, you are seen, you are held, and you are utterly beloved, not for what you achieve or receive, but for who you are in the One who defines you. Let this truth be the quiet strength that fills the silence of your wait. You find yourself in the waiting room of life. The digital clock on the wall ticks with maddening slowness. It feels sterile, impersonal, like a place where time goes to die. You look around and see other faces, etched with weariness, hope, or perhaps a practiced indifference. This isn't where you wanted to be. This wasn't part of the plan. Life feels paused, a frustrating intermission before the real act begins. You wonder if you've been forgotten here, adrift in a sea of uncertainty, waiting for a sign, a breakthrough, a door to open that seems stubbornly shut. The fear creeps in. Fear that this waiting is wasted time, an empty void draining your potential, stripping you of momentum. But what if this waiting room isn't a void at all? What if it's a sacred space, a place where God does some of His most profound work, often unseen, often misunderstood? The spiritual insight is this: God is inherently purposeful. He doesn't navigate by chance, nor does He waste seasons. The wilderness isn't just a place of wandering. It's where faith is forged and provision is miraculous. The valley isn't merely a descent. It's where streams of living water are sometimes found. And the waiting room isn't just a holding pattern. It can be fertile ground for divine encounter, deep preparation, and unexpected ministry. Consider Joseph, stripped of his coat of many colors, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned. He waited years, decades it felt like, for the promise he carried in his heart to manifest. Imagine the waiting room of that Egyptian prison. Yet, within those confines, something extraordinary happened. Joseph didn't just endure, he engaged. He administered the prison, Genesis 39. He interpreted dreams for fellow inmates, Genesis 40. He honed skills in leadership, wisdom, and discernment that would become absolutely essential when he stood before Pharaoh and ultimately saved nations, Genesis 41. His waiting wasn't wasted. It was woven into the very fabric of his destiny. The dark, silent prison became the classroom, the training ground, the place where God was equipping him, even when he couldn't see the blueprint. God can use your current waiting season in the same powerful way. This isn't just a circumstance to grit your teeth and get through. It's a potential crucible for growth, a quiet studio for divine artistry in your soul. He might be calling you to learn patience, not as a virtue to admire, but as a muscle to strengthen under tension. He might be positioning you to minister, right here, right now, to others sitting in their own waiting rooms, sharing the hope that anchors you, even when the waves are high. Your anxiety about the future can be redirected into a quiet surrender, finding rest, not in knowing the outcome, but in knowing the one who holds it. Look closer. Look for opportunities within this season that you might have missed because you were focused on the exit door. How might God be asking you to serve the person next to you? How might this quiet time be an invitation to deepen your understanding of His Word, finding promises that become oil for your lamp in the darkness? He's not just passing time with you, He is preparing you. He is equipping you right where you are, in the stillness, in the uncertainty, in the seemingly empty space. The waiting room isn't a pause on life. Perhaps it's the very place where true life, life surrendered and purposeful, begins to breathe within you. It's a gentle paradox. In the slowing down, you are being sped up for what's next. In the holding, you are being shaped. Have eyes to see the purpose in the pause. The clock hands creep. Each second ticks by, a tiny drumbeat echoing the impatience deep within you. You sit with the quiet ache of the unfulfilled prayer, the unanswered question, the door that remains stubbornly closed. It's easy, in these moments of prolonged waiting, to fall into the quiet lie that God is simply slow, that He's delayed, that maybe He forgot, or perhaps you weren't important enough for Him to move right now. This feeling is relatable. It's a weight many carry. You see others' prayers answered, their doors opening, their seasons shifting, while you feel frozen in place, stuck in the wilderness of not yet. The waiting feels like punishment, or at best, divine inefficiency. But the truth, whispered through the ages and etched into Scripture, is that God's timing is not merely delayed. It is perfect. Not just eventually good, but flawlessly, strategically, and divinely perfect. His perspective on time is so vastly different from our own frantic human clocks. The Apostle Peter reminds us, with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. 2 Peter 3:8-9. Imagine that scope. He exists outside the ticking seconds we are bound by. He is not governed by the sunrise or the sunset, the calendar months, or the earthly deadlines we impose or desperately hope for. He sees the beginning and the end simultaneously. His delay is often the unfolding of His divine strategy, a complex weave of preparation, not just of the circumstances around you, but of the very soil within you. He is shaping, refining, strengthening, preparing you for what is coming, even as you feel stuck in the barren pause. Remember a time in your past, perhaps, when you longed for something, prayed intensely, and it didn't happen when you wanted it to. It felt like a no, or at least a painful later. But looking back now, through the rearview mirror of time, can you see how that timing, which felt so wrong then, was actually a shield of divine protection, a crucial season of preparation you didn't know you needed, or the necessary path to bring about an outcome far better, far richer than the one you had envisioned? That seemingly slow unfolding was God working all things together for good, for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. Romans 8:28. His delay wasn't neglect. It was divine strategy, a holy orchestration playing out according to a score you couldn't read yet. Can you, just for a moment, lean into that memory of past faithfulness and let it inform your present waiting season? Can you trust that the same perfect wisdom, the same loving preparation, the same grand redemptive plan is at work right now, even when the silence is deafening and the path forward is shrouded in mist? His timing is never a reflection of your worthiness, as if you haven't prayed enough or been good enough. It is never a reflection of his ability, as if the situation is too hard for him to handle quickly. It is solely a reflection of his sovereign perfection, his complete and utter wisdom. He is never early, never late. He is always, always, precisely on time according to his purposes. The wait is not a void. It is the quiet, powerful space where his perfect timing is being meticulously crafted, just for you and for his glory. You sit in the quiet, the echo of unanswered prayer lingering like mist. The wind taps the window again, like God's whisper waiting for your stillness. Seasons shift outside, marking time while your heart feels suspended, caught in a space between what was and what is yet to be. This season of waiting, perhaps it feels long, perhaps it feels empty, a wilderness stretch where faith is tested with silence. The path is uncertain, the destination unclear, and the fear of being forgotten creeps in like a cold shadow. You wonder if you are drifting, lost at sea in the vastness of God's timeline. But look closer at the heart of this waiting, this hopeful stillness. It is not an empty void, but a space held firm. The anchor of your soul is hope, not a flimsy, hopeful wish cast upon unpredictable waves, but a confident, steady expectation rooted deep in the unchanging character of God Himself. This hope doesn't magically erase the ache of the wait, the difficulty of the journey. Instead, it provides the steadying force right in the heart of the storm, the quiet assurance that God is faithful, His purposes are good, and He holds the narrative thread that He will surely bring to completion. The ancient scripture whispers of this hope, an anchor for the soul, firm and secure, reaching far into the inner sanctuary, behind the veil, Hebrews 6:19. It is not anchored to circumstances or outcomes or even your own strength. It is securely fastened to God Himself in the very presence of the Almighty. Your hope finds its mooring in the One who sits enthroned above all things. Even when His voice feels silent, His presence sings over you. He is not a distant deity watching from afar as you navigate the difficulty. He is the God who draws near to the brokenhearted, intimately involved in every single detail of your life, even the quiet, hidden ones of waiting. You are profoundly not alone in this space. The Holy Spirit Himself walks with you, interceding for you with groanings too deep for human words. Romans 8:26. He is holding you in this space, sustaining you, strengthening you moment by moment through the wait. The truest promise isn't necessarily that the waiting will immediately end, but the absolute assurance of His powerful, comforting presence in the waiting itself. This is the sacred space where your faith is being built, where your roots are growing deeper into the soil of His truth, preparing you tenderly for the good plans He has already conceived for you. Jeremiah 29:11. Sometimes the greatest growth happens not when we are finally out of the storm, but when His presence holds us steady within it. Close your eyes for a moment now. Soften your gaze. Soften your heart. Imagine His hand, gentle and strong, gently holding yours. Feel the warmth of His presence wrapping around you, the steadying, unwavering grip of His perfect love. In this moment, release the anxiety that clings to the timeline. Release the fear that you might be forgotten in the unfolding of seasons. Just rest. Rest in the profound truth that you are seen, fully known, and deeply, unconditionally loved right here, right now, in this exact season you are in. The waiting is not a void. It is a sacred space filled to overflowing with His presence, His boundless grace, and His unwavering faithfulness. Your hope is anchored in Him, and He will never, ever let you go. He doesn't require you to see the end to trust. He simply asks you to trust Him always, because He is inherently trustworthy, even and especially in the quietest, most uncertain moments. Your heart, your story, your future, they are safe with the God of perfect timing, whose perfect timing is not measured by clocks, but by the unfolding of His perfect will. They didn't see the end, but they trusted the author, and that was enough.